Where do we begin? The summer of 2020 was a summer of waiting. In March, my last year of high school was moved online, and it was soon announced that my final exams in May were cancelled, which left 6 very empty months ahead of me. One of the things I did in those 6 months was work in a factory, and as you can imagine, it was a terribly mundane experience, but it also meant I was finally making some money of my own. On my last day of work, I bought a pint of ice cream, and I ordered this from Book Depository. Like all Russian literature, it took me a minute to get into it. The quirk of this book is that a lot of the dialogue is in French, because that was the language of the Russian aristocracy at the time, and so you have to read translations at the bottom. This sense of disorientation is compounded by the sheer number of characters involved. One thing I had to learn was that reading characters in War and Peace is a lot like meeting people at the soirees that happen so often in this book, and that you don't need to remember everyone's names or all the details and all their introductions. The important characters will stick with you. Tolstoy will ensure that. It was around the 100-page mark where I finally fell into the rhythm of Tolstoy's prose, and it's the scene where Pierre's father is on his deathbed. Tolstoy's free and lyric speech is like a film camera that moves into a hallway, moves in and out of these rooms, in and out of these private conversations, and lays their souls bare. And yet the sequence ends with a singular moment of intimacy between a father and a son. And there's this beautiful moment where Pierre's father becomes suddenly conscious of the weakness of his arm, and he smiles at himself in self-mockery, and Pierre suddenly feels a very physical love for him. This sequence is symbolic of what Tolstoy does as a whole in this book. A lot of characters are making noise, they're trying to leave a legacy, to exist beyond their own existences, and yet what Tolstoy really cares about, what Tolstoy thinks matters, is these singular moments of intimacy between people, these moments of human connection. And my favorite scene is a conversation between Pierre and Andre. Pierre has just become a Freemason and he's on the spiritual high. He's satisfied his naive philanthropic spirit. Andre, on the other hand, has almost died in war and witnessed his wife die in childbirth, and he has resolved to live solely for himself. And Pierre is pleading with him, how can you say that you only want to live for yourself? And Pierre says this, don't I feel in my soul that I make up a part of that huge harmonious whole? Don't I feel that among the countless number of beings in which the divinity, the higher power, whatever you like, is manifest, I make up one link, one step from lower beings to higher. I think it's a beautiful scene because it coalesces two opposite ends of the human experience and really pays testament to how broad the human condition is. Of course, a huge part of this book is Tolstoy's astounding depiction of the two Napoleonic Wars and his very peculiar commentaries on them. One scene in particular struck with me. It's this rare moment of peace where Tolstoy describes a dam where fishermen used to fish and where Moravians used to drive their 2-horse carts. Now all there is between wagons and cannon, on their horses and between wheels, crowded men disfigured by the fear of death, crushing each other, dying, stepping over the dying, and killing each other, only to go a few steps and be killed themselves just the same. Tolstoy is also astounding in his portrayal of grief, and I think is the most notable or obvious in the character of Natasha. I think the most beautiful line in the book is attributed to her. She did not know it, she would not have believed it, but under a seemingly impenetrable layer of silk that covered her soul, thin, tender young needles of grass were already breaking through, which were to take root and so cover with the living shoots the grief that oppressed her, that would soon not be seen or noticed. The wound was healing from inside. And as I said earlier, Tolstoy rejects institutions as a place to find meaning and human connection in favor of interpersonal relationships. Pierre becomes Freemason, but he sort of just becomes bored of it or finds it to be superficial or unfulfilling. Where Pierre truly has his epiphany is when he is accidentally taken as a prisoner of war, and a peasant shares a piece of potato with him. I think Tolstoy's own oneness of the universe is refracted in Pierre, because after this moment there are these swirling monologues. Pierre has his Pharaoh Sanders, love is everywhere moment. And I think ultimately War and Peace is a book that's drunk on the human experience and drunk on the fullness of it and how we are all binded together and how life keeps moving. In an endless summer, it kept me in a constant state of anticipation for the next chapter, the next part, the next romance, the next death even. And I think that quiet anticipatory acts are what keeps us going, and War and Peace is full of them, right up until the very end. And if quiet anticipatory acts are what they call hope, I suppose it is a hopeful book.